Hey, best friends. We are here today per Jade's request for true crime whipping chats. And this might not be posted on Wednesday, but it's being filmed on Wednesday. And in the future, if I do more of these, they will also be on Wednesday. So welcome to Wicked Wednesday. Before we get into the first case, roll the credits, Bubba, because I am not doing the whole welcome to Lazy River thing on these. I just feel like it's disrespectful. So I got to figure something else out. But show them the manatees with the woo music. All right. Hey, guys. I'm struggling today. I wanted to be filming this a lot earlier. Aiden will be home in like 20 minutes. So hopefully it doesn't take me that long to tell this story. I tried to go with something that was short. And because I was doing something that was short, doing air quotes, I did a whole bunch of information about my hometown, which is where Wicked Wednesday came from, because I am from New Bedford, Massachusetts originally, even though we live in Georgia now. But wicked is a very popular adjective. Everything is wicked cool, wicked awesome, it's wicked hot. So double entendre, and also referencing where I'm from, because we're talking about wicked people that do wicked bad things. So yeah, I thought, like, I skimmed through and I'm like, oh, this one's pretty short, so I need this filler. And I got all of this information that I probably didn't need to get, because there's more to the story than I had originally thought. But since I've already done the research, we're gonna talk about it. So I am originally from New Bedford, Massachusetts, like I said, and it is known as the Whaling City. I guess at one point it was nicknamed the city that lit the world, and that also goes back to the whaling industry. They would render the whale blubber from the whales that they would harpoon and catch or whatever. They would turn that into oil, and that's what they would use to oil the lamps until like 1859, when petroleum was discovered. And then after that, petroleum became the thing to use, and New Bedford kept with the times, and they decided they were going to open the first petroleum refinery in the country, because if you're going to do something, do it well, do it first, be the best. The reason I say that is, with the whaling industry, we were the biggest whaling port in the world. It was also the richest city per capita in the world. Then again, there was like 12,000 people here at the time. Herman Melville actually went whaling on a boat called the Acushnet, which is also the name of a town that's right nearby that I spent my teenage years living in. And because of his experience whaling aboard that ship that sailed out of New Bedford, and also one of the churches that was in New Bedford, that all shaped what he wrote about New Bedford. What he wrote in Moby Dick. Sorry, too busy paying attention to the shaky shakes. Yeah, so he based Moby Dick on his experiences, just visiting, walking through New Bedford, and aboard the ship that he was on. At the time, we were also a major station of the Underground Railroad, so a lot of people who are considered fugitives, I'm not saying they were, I mean, I guess, like, yeah, they were fugitives. They were running away from slavery. A lot of people that had been slaves that were on the Underground Railroad would come through New Bedford. Some would stay in New Bedford. Frederick Douglass actually was in New Bedford for about 3 years, and he went there when he was like 18. He and his wife lived there for 3 years. I think he was actually mentored by somebody that was in New Bedford. I can't remember his name right now, and I didn't write it down, but there was a man who was mixed. He was like African American and a couple of other nationalities, but he was like a tycoon, and he mentored Frederick Douglass, and then Frederick Douglass went on to do, speaking engagements and became an orator because this tycoon saw a lot of potential in him to influence people. Also, this tycoon that I can't remember his name. Why won't you come off in there? I don't know if that's what she said. This tycoon worked to allow the Black property owners to actually vote, like decades before Abraham Lincoln even signed the Emancipation Proclamation. After whaling kind of died out, like towards the end of whaling, New Bedford started building mills to manufacture cotton cloth. And that's still, like, fishing and whaling are two of the biggest, not whaling, fishing and like working in textiles, a lot of factories. That's still like two of the biggest industries in New Bedford. My mom actually worked in the factory. She was working on men's suits. She would sew the pockets on. I actually went there and worked with her for a summer when I was a teenager. So that didn't last long. I didn't stick the whole summer because there's no air conditioning. And it's a brick building. So it would be like 80 something degrees outside. And then with all of the machinery running and no ventilation, no air conditioning, it would easily get up over 100 degrees. And I almost passed out. So she brought me home and I never went back again. She didn't want me working there anymore. But I saw how hard she had it. So yeah, was once the richest city in the world. That is definitely not the case anymore. The fishing port is still huge. They have the most expensive catches, I guess. In the US, the biggest weight is Alaska, but in New Bedford, they catch a lot of oysters, and oysters are more expensive, so that drives value up. And in 2019, the catch for that year was like $451 million. So fishing is still huge. There is a rumor that's gone around. I've never seen, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I need to research this too. But there's a rumor that there's a lot of smuggling of drugs, like inside the fish. I don't know if that's true, but New Bedford has become kind of a bad area for drug use. Had to stop following the local pages because it was constantly like people drug overdosing in bathrooms at Dunkin' Donuts, and there was one girl who like overdosed 5 times in a week, and they were arguing about putting a limit on how much Narcan to administer a person. Police carry Narcan because a lot of the calls are overdoses. There's a lot of car accidents because people are overdosing. It's gotten real bad. The most recent census was in 2010, and the annual income per capita was like $15,000, like 15,500, around there. So yeah, that's one person's yearly earnings. 20% of people are living below the poverty line, and of those 20%, 29% of those are children. So not really the best place to grow up. There are beautiful places though. Like I said, since it has a port, we have a fort where there's beach like on 2 parallel streets. So you would go around the fort and you'd go up a street and there's beach, and then you come on another street, like you take a left, and that street is like grassy. There's a hill, but behind the hill is more water, and then you take another left, so you're on another street parallel from the first street, and they're within walking distance of each other. They actually have a like rock wall, squall wall that goes all the way around, and they built on top of it to make it even. And they made like a cement walkway so that you could walk the whole distance, because on that parallel street is also more beach. And then from that street you can see across to Fairhaven, and that's like a quiet little town. Wealthier people tend to live in Fairhaven, and you can see their beach from that beach. So yeah, there's nice areas, but it's very crowded. There's over 100,000 people that live there, and it's only 20 square miles. So there's like almost 5,000 people per square mile. There's a lot of apartments, not a lot of houses, and not like apartment complexes. I mean, it's houses, but they're tall houses, and it'll have 2, usually 3 floors, and each different floor will be a different apartment for a different family. Mostly street parking, so it's very crowded, and it's a mess in the winter when you can't park in certain spots. But at one time, we were great. Just giving you a little bit of background about where I'm from. I don't know if you can hear the dogs growling, sorry. Background on where I'm from, that's where this story is. So, It's a very, like, it's a historical town. They have the Ash Street jail there, and that's the oldest, like, continuously operating jail in the country. So there's information about New Bedford. Some of it I feel like still lives in me. Like with Frederick Douglass having lived there for some time. A lot of people settled there because they considered our city a abolitionist stronghold. They felt the people believed strongly in universal human rights and dignity, and they were fierce defenders of freedom. Slave catchers actually dreaded coming to New Bedford to try to get the slaves back for their owners, because the people of the town would run them away, usually with a beating. So there's that. So yeah. Since we're talking true crime, the FBI reported in 2019 that not our, because I'm in Georgia now, but New Bedford's violent crime rate was 640 people per 100,000. And comparatively, the national average is 366.7 people per 100,000. So close to double. I don't know exact percentages, but closer to 50%. So yeah. I don't know if part of that is also the drug industry. But anyway, there is another person who is from Massachusetts or New Bedford, particularly. She has ties. I don't know if you'd want me to cover or do a story on her. Her name is Henrietta Holland Green. She went by Hetty Green. She was called the Witch of Wall Street. She was the wealthiest woman in the world at one point, and she's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, even though she lived in the 1800s, as the greatest miser. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I remember late night reading about her, and how she came to get all of this money. So if you would like me to do a story on that, let me know. Also, up front, I am really nervous filming this because this is something that I wanted to do. Like I told Jade, I don't want to take the time away from diamond painting to like really commit to researching and having scripts and doing constant like pause, play, pause, play, pause, play. Speaking of, I'm gonna pause right now to make sure the front door is unlocked for Aiden. Alright, sorry guys, I had to pause because I was looking at the time and I was starting to get nervous about Aiden getting home and the door wasn't unlocked. And normally I let the dogs out back. We have a fenced in backyard. I let the dogs out back so that they don't try to run out the front door when he comes in. So yeah, finally we can get to the true crime story. So this story is not well known. It's not even completely done yet. Everything I'm going to say is alleged because there has not been the trial yet. But you guys wanted this story first. To be completely honest, I'm kind of nervous, and I hope you guys like this because I do really enjoy true crime and talking about true crime, but I didn't want to come off like I was trying to steal anybody's thunder, first of all. And also, I watch a lot of true crime channels on YouTube, and a lot of those are heavily researched, and they're constantly like pausing and taking breaks so that they can look at their script and, you know, stay. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to take the time away from diamond painting to do quite that much research and be quite that rehearsed. But when Jade suggested that I do this, she said she wants more like conversational whip and chat style. I don't know if I said it earlier. If you're still here, whip and chat. Whip stands for work in progress. So you just pull out whatever you're working on, or if your work is housework or driving, which is usually what I'm doing when I'm listening to Whip and Chat, so I never really get to comment. Just bust out your projects, and I'm gonna talk, and you guys can listen if you find this subject interesting, or if I haven't run you off with boring facts about my hometown yet. I won't do that every episode, just so you know. But this is one that I was not very well rehearsed. I had just skimmed, but the article titles were kind of getting me. So that's why I threw it in as one of the options for the first episode, and you guys chose this one. I really want to do the New Bedford Highway Killer at some point soon, and Bev has also mentioned one to me. That's if I keep doing this, because like I said, you guys might not even like this, and then I won't do it again, I promise. But one sec. Okay, I'm doing all of these embellishments, so I have to keep referring to my papers over here. Make sure that I'm grabbing the right thing, because they're not always direct matches. So I forgot what I was saying. Fun times. Yeah, if you guys like this, if I do it again, Bev suggested a story. That might be a while if I do cover that one. It does have ties to where she's from, but it kind of makes me sick to my stomach every time I hear it, and it's bad. That one's bad, and completely senseless. So maybe someday, but hopefully soon, I will do the New Bedford Highway Killer. I think I'm so interested in that one because it's still unsolved and not many people cover it. I watch a lot of true crime, and I had to specifically go searching, and I found one channel, and they did maybe a 15-minute video on it, and there's 11 victims that were found on the side of the highways across town. There were 2 major suspects that are now both deceased. So there's a lot. I don't know how they were able to condense it that far down, but that's a case that I really want to get out. And when Jade was in her live and we started talking true crime, I was mentioning a true crime story that happened here, which is the Santa child killer is like a mile down the street. And I was revealing some of the details, and that's how this whole thing came up. He also, turns out, I found out later, that he's related to a serial killer from South Carolina. So that I find really interesting, because, you know, with serial killers, it's always this nature versus nurture debate. And I feel like that's a good case to look at, because it's like, is it something that's in their bloodline that caused both? I think it was uncle and like great nephew. I think that's the family connection. But is there something in that bloodline that caused both of them to do things that they did? But I was looking at the New Bedford Highway Killer information, and the seashell, solved by a seashell thing, really grabbed me. So gave that as one of the options, and here we are, and we're just gonna get into it because I'm rambling and I have no idea what I'm saying. So today we're gonna talk about Rosemary Moniz. Back in March of 2001, her father was picking her up for a doctor's appointment, and he was not prepared for the scene he was going to come upon. He walked into the house, and there was kitchen utensils strewn all over the place. Her purse had been overturned in the living room and emptied. And he finds his daughter, 41-year-old Rosemary Moniz, dead in the bathroom in a pool of her own blood. So he starts screaming, and surprisingly to him, his nephew, 18-year-old nephew, Robert, Rosemary's son, comes running down the stairs. And he's just screaming, "Your mother's dead, your mother's dead." But also he was expecting that the nephew was going to be also dead. So he was a little, thrown off by that. So a little information about Rose. Couldn't find too much, but she was a 41-year-old single mother to her 18-year-old son, Robert, who still lived at home. She had 5 siblings. She had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Why? Drill. Come on. Click. There we go. She had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Her eldest brother, Fred, said that she was very loving and gentle. He said that she would help out anybody. He said at one point his wife had been really ill, and she had actually come help take care of her. And she worked 2 jobs. I don't know if both of them were part-time or just the donut shop was part-time, but the other one was full-time. But she worked at a donut shop, and one of her regular customers there, his wife had passed away. So she made it a point to make him pots of soup to make sure that he had food and was fed, because his wife would do all the cooking. So she kind of took over that role of making sure that he was eating. And her sister said when they were in elementary school, she was the type of kid that would see the kids that weren't really playing with anybody. Nobody wanted to play with them. People were mean to them, and she would befriend those people. So unfortunately, that's really all I could find about her as a person, but I feel like those few facts say a lot. So police come to the house. They find no signs of forced entry. And when her autopsy is done, based on the scene and on her autopsy, She had significant trauma to her skull. It was fractured in multiple places. Her nasal bones and left cheekbones were also broken. She had gaping lacerations, and there were internal injuries that were causing her to bleed from her ears. They were able to determine that 3 weapons were used in the attack. A fire poker, a cast iron skillet, a cast iron tea kettle, and a conch shell. So they investigated like over 100 people, or interviewed over 100 people, and they had 2 main suspects that they were able to rule out early on. One of them was her son, because she was dead in the house and he wasn't. His alibi, though, was that he worked late. He would work until about 11, and that night he had decided to go out with friends after work. And he got home at like 4:30 in the morning. And he didn't want his mom to be upset with how late he was coming in. So he snuck in through the back entrance instead of the front entrance and just went straight up to bed, not realizing that his mother was already dead downstairs. The other was a man that she had dated briefly. He's not named anywhere, but it was a man that she was dating briefly. And he actually turned up at her work not long before her murder and had vowed to kill her because she ended the relationship. But they were able to rule both of those out, and it became a cold case for 20 years. And it was a thing where the family still thought that the man that she was dating was responsible, but everyone else thought the son was responsible. So he was always looking over his shoulder, waiting for an arrest, because he knew, like, it did look suspicious that he was sleeping in the house with his mom dead downstairs. Well, in 2019, they started reviewing her case again. The DA for Bristol County, which is where New Bedford is, his name is Thomas Quinn. He assigned a cold case unit, and there was also a lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police Unsolved Crimes Unit. They were working together. They were going through all homicides that were unsolved going back into the 70s. It was like 45 years back. There were over 70 cases, and they were looking at every single piece of evidence to see if there was anything that could be reanalyzed using new DNA technology to see if they could develop any leads by testing these items. So they were looking at Rosemarie's case in 2019, and they were looking at the autopsy photos, and there was lacerations and bruising on her face. There was like contusions, which is bruising on her face. And looking at that and looking at the evidence and the weapons that were used that were collected, they could see that the spiny part on the outside of the conch shell had made contact with her face. And it was quite a forceful blow. This is where I get mad, because I feel like this is kind of obvious, but this is also why it's good to have cold case units come back and review with new eyes, because they might acknowledge something, they might see something that was missed. In order for the conch shell, oh wait, hold on, did I finish all of them for this color? I think so. Give me one sec. No, I didn't. I have a whole bunch of them. I don't know why I thought I wasn't doing the U's. I hope I wasn't doing the wrong ones before. Okay, no. So, in order for the conch shell to be used as a weapon, how are you going to hold it? Are you going to hold it like this? No. If you've seen a conch shell, which I will try to get Matt to put a picture in here, probably not the actual evidence photo, which is out there, but there's blood spatter on it, and I kind of don't want to go that route. So a conch shell is quite large. There's a spiny part and like a pointy part. Usually if you have it as a decoration, it'll rest kind of on that spiny part, but it curls inward. So you would have to put your hands in order to get a good grip on it. And that's how you would wield a blow. So they were theorizing that that's how you would have had to hold the shell in order to use it to cause those types of wounds. So they had that tested for DNA, and results came back from CODIS, and their suspect was a man by the name of David Reed. David Reed was in the system already for a previous incident. And this again is alleged because you'll see why. But in 2003, a gentleman heard a woman screaming and opened the door and had seen a woman covered in blood. She had been in a car with David Reed. It didn't say if she had a relationship with him, if she was just getting a ride. I don't know. But she was in the car with David Reed, and he beat her with a tire iron, took her purse, and pushed her out of the vehicle. So this gentleman sees this woman bleeding in the middle of the road. I don't know if a report was filed at this point, because there was another incident that involved the two of them, and I think that might be the time that the police initially got involved. But a few weeks later, the victim, her name was Maribel Martinez Alegria, she was at home and she spotted that same truck creeping slowly past her house. And then a little while later, that same truck creeping slowly past her house. And she had male family in the home with her. So they were kind of like, what the hell is going on? Third time he comes by, all of the men hop in the car and start following his truck while they're calling the police, letting them know that the same vehicle that attacked her is now like stalking her house. So police run down, and there's a little bit of a chase where he's fleeing from both the brothers and nephews, all the male family of the victim, as well as the police. And eventually it ends in a head-on collision with a police cruiser, and the police officer in the cruiser was injured. So he gets brought in, and before he can stand trial for charges stemming from that, he flees and disappears for 11 years. He posts bail and then he just takes off. He ended up, for some time, he lived in Florida, and then he lived in Hawaii, and then moved to Alabama. Well, police found him in Alabama and apprehended him on May 7 of 2015. The problem was the victim in the attack had actually passed away like 6 months prior to them getting him. And since she was no longer alive to give her statement, that kind of messed up their case. They didn't have enough evidence. So the charge was dismissed in regards to the attack on her. But he was held for the bail jumping and the charges related to fleeing the police and hitting a cop car. He ended up being sentenced to about 3.5 to 4 years in prison, in a state prison. And at that point, he had to submit DNA. And that's how they were able to link him to what happened to Rose Marie. So in late 2020, he is living in Dartmouth, which is another little wealthier area right outside of New Bedford. Law enforcement arrive at his home after CODIS brings up this match, and they ask if they could speak to him and interview him about a case. He agrees. They have a very brief interview, but immediately after that interview, he makes plans to peace out yet again. So he ends up going back to Alabama. I'm not sure why. Like, he was caught before in Alabama. Why are you going back to Alabama? I don't know. But they tracked him to Alabama. He was working at a lumber yard there. So police show up at his work to speak to him about the case. And then he flees again, and he's gone for a year. He was in California for a while, New York, Pennsylvania, Hawaii again. Ultimately, they found him in Rhode Island, which, if you're unfamiliar with New England, Rhode Island is right next to Massachusetts. So when I lived in New Bedford, the state capital of Rhode Island, which is the smallest state in the country, the state capital of Rhode Island, Providence, was like 45 minutes away, and that's where he was found. He was at a shelter, the Providence Rescue Mission shelter, asleep when they showed up. In the meantime, they were able to get further evidence about the 2003 assault and robbery on Maribel. So those charges were renewed indictment. He was arraigned on that attack in October 2021. His charges were armed assault with intent to murder and armed robbery. And the judge, his name was Greg Pasquale, or Pasquale. I don't know how you want to say it. I think the first way I said it is like the Americanized version. Anyway, he found him dangerous because he was a flight risk and he was attacking women to steal money. So he was denied bail. And then shortly after, they had also done, after the shell came back with his DNA, they had also done genetic genealogy testing. So this is something that's becoming big. It's how the Golden State Killer got found. They'll find links in the family tree. So police were using like Ancestry.com and stuff like that, where you would provide your DNA to find family members. They were submitting criminals' DNA to those to try to find familial matches. And then they would go to the family tree and try to narrow down who in that family tree that had a match could be the person that they're looking for. A lot of places have now like made laws. There's a lot of controversy over using DNA in that way because the other person that you're linking didn't give permission. The person that submitted their DNA didn't give permission for it to be used that way. There is one, it's, I believe, GEDmatch, and I believe that one is people who voluntarily submit knowing that this is what it's going to be used for. I'm not sure what they used in order to do the genetic genealogy testing for David to see if they could match. There was partial DNA under Rose's fingerprints. So I don't know if they used Ancestry.com or if they had used the GEDmatch, but they test a YSTR DNA, and that also matched. So his DNA was also under her nails. Sorry, I keep having to stop because I've been charting as I go on the Krabby. Tomatoa Krabby. So shiny. Oh yeah, I can't copyright. And Matthew will yell at me for singing. And I didn't tell you guys what I'm using or anything. I'm sorry, I'm trying to rush this and it's not going so well. Not going so well at all, but I want to get it out today. So back to the story. First, I'm charting this as I go, and I thought I had all the colors in this section like assigned a color, and apparently not. So I had to find something that I could use for the little Y symbol. Okay. So as I was saying, I don't know if it was Ancestry.com, the GEDmatch, something. They used that, and they were also able to match that. So, I mean, I think it's pretty open and shut that they're going to find him guilty, but his lawyer was, I don't know, his lawyer seeming very overconfident. He's like, well, there's no DNA on the other two weapons. Well, if he wiped them down, it's easier to wipe down a fire poker and a tea kettle than to get inside of the shell and make sure you get all that DNA out of there. So to me, it seems pretty open and shut. We'll see what happens. I wonder if they had done this kind of testing, if they would be able to tell that there was a genetic link between the victim and the murderer. I wonder if they would be able to tell that when her father walked in to find his daughter dead on the floor, that his son is the one that did it. See, Rose had 4 brothers. What I didn't tell you yet is that 2 of those brothers were half siblings. Apparently her father and her mother had hit a tumultuous point in their relationship, and he had an extramarital affair, and he had 2 children. Even so, after that, when his wife and his relationship improved, she and all of the children treated those 2 boys as if he was an equal part of their family. She treated them very well. So she had no animosity, which bigger woman than I don't know if I could do that. Even if we were having a tough time, suddenly finding out that, hey, there's 2 more kids that aren't yours. Being able to bring them into your family so that they would know their siblings and know their dad, I think is amazing. What I don't think is amazing is that no one ever suspected him. Like I said, everyone was either looking at the ex-boyfriend or looking at the son. And I mean, this is 20 years that they're looking at the son. Like, the whole city is looking at the son thinking that he did it. Even though the reason he was initially ruled out pretty quickly is because time of death was 5 hours before he got home. And his friends were able to corroborate that they were out in Providence and going out to bars and clubs and stuff. He was about my age, actually, but I don't know him. But yeah, they were able to prove with the autopsy that she had definitely been dead when he got home. And people were still looking at him. So he was... It just sucks. I can't imagine, like, having spent the last 20 years having people think that I murdered my parent when I just went out with my friends. But anyway, Fred, her oldest brother, had a really hard time with this. He said, I guess the parents, his mom and dad, had passed away in like 2016. And it's like a blessing and a curse, right? Because they died not knowing who killed their daughter. But at the same time, they died not knowing who killed their daughter. And they don't even know, like, it was an undetermined amount of money that was in her purse. They don't know how much he killed her for. Her brother struggled with the fact that all 4 brothers were pallbearers at her funeral. And he recalled them being in the vehicle, and he was kind of hyping them up because he promised his parents, like, we're gonna find out. Like, it's fine. We're gonna find out who did it. So when they were getting out of the car, they still didn't know who did it. And he advised all the pallbearers, like, I want you to look at the camera. There's going to be cameras. I want you to look at the camera like you're looking into the eyes of the person who killed her. So he knows that we're looking for him and we're going to find him. This quote hit me really hard. Fred, the eldest brother, said, it turned out that the person carrying her to the grave was the person who killed her. And I can't. Oh, that hit so hard. Because no one suspected him. Even after what happened a couple years later and he disappeared, like, no one had the slightest idea that he would do that. So yeah, the murder has been solved, but Fred says he has a new mission now that they know who killed his sister. His new mission is to make sure everyone knows that it wasn't his nephew. He said after the arrest was made, they actually went out to celebrate. They went out to a restaurant to celebrate. And they told the waitress, like, hey, you know, my sister died, and they were talking about what happened and said that there was finally an arrest. And the waitress said, oh yeah, it was her son, right? Like, it was common knowledge. Everyone knew it was her son. They've just finally arrested her son. And he was like, no, that's her son, and pointed across the table. I can't imagine being that waitress, and I wouldn't go back to that table. No. Oh no. So, as I said, everything I've just said is alleged because he has not been on trial for either case yet. He was arrested for the murder of his half-sister, Rose Marie Moniz, in December of 2021. The motive was however much money she had in her purse. No, I mean, she worked part-time at a donut shop, so I can't imagine she was rolling in it, but the arraignment was held in January of this year by the Deputy DA, William McCauley, and the ADA, Caleb Weiner. He had the pretrial conference in March. It was March 7th. I was not able to find any information about that. July 18 of this year is going to be the pretrial hearing. I will try to keep up with it and let you guys know if there's any crazy new developments, but I mean, he pled not guilty. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I don't go to people's houses and see a conch shell and just pick it up for no reason, put my hand inside it. I mean, put it to like your ear so that you could hear the ocean? Maybe, but I'm not just like wielding it around like that. So I don't know how he thinks that he has a shot, but we'll see what happens. And now Robert finally has the chance to grieve his mother because he has spent 20 years with the rumors and the fear, because we all know many people are wrongly convicted on less. So he still struggles with the sight of his mom. He said when he ran down those stairs and he saw her, like, he couldn't even kiss her because her face and her head were so messed up that all he could do was rub her legs. And seeing her that way haunts him. And I can't imagine. This is part of why I left. Is the rumor and the gossip. And I mean, you go to church and they're in the pews whispering and spreading rumors about you and gossiping at church like it's nothing. I mean, I can't imagine being haunted by that vision and walking around knowing that people are looking at you thinking that you're the one who did it to her. So that is the story of Rose Marie and how a shell solved her case. I hope you guys like the story. I'm still, like, I went into this feeling really good, but it's hard to show much personality at first. I've seen that with other creators. I've gone into their backlogs, like the first few is really stilted, and then as you get comfortable, you start showing your personality more. It's a hard balance to not disrespect the victim or the victim's family. Personally, I don't care about David Reed, but since his family is her family, yeah, it's hard. So hopefully I get more comfortable as time goes on. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, not enjoyed, like, you just found it interesting. I think it's amazing what they can do with DNA now. I personally am all for, like, if I haven't done Ancestry.com or anything like that, but if I had, I am all for it. If you're using my DNA and someone in my family did something bad, then they deserve to be got. So, I know there's a lot of people who are like paranoid and what else are they going to do with my DNA and blah, blah, blah. But if I could prevent one person being murdered by a serial killer in my family that I don't know about, then I'm good with it. So yeah, that's it for this case. I have ideas for other cases too that aren't from my hometown. There was a 2020 episode that I watched not too long ago where a man was convicted for murdering a young girl. Like, they were friends, they were the same age. He was found guilty and convicted of it. But then genetic genealogy, there, Cece, I can't remember if it's Moore or Williams. I think it's Cece Moore. She works for a company, Parabon, that does a lot of that testing, and she was able to track down information because they were able to find that it wasn't him, it was somebody else that had killed her. And the mom of the victim actually like went on a crusade to try to get him out of prison. And she was like one of the biggest speakers for like, there's evidence he did not do this. Like, why is he still in prison? And she spent years hating this man, and they've actually become friends, and she actually was one of his biggest fighters. So that one was really interesting. I'd like to review that because I think it's cool, all the stuff that they can do with technology. I also, like I said, want to find a few cases that have weird motives, because for me, it's all about making sense of it, trying to understand. And when there's serial killers who just do it to do it, or strange motives that, like, I mean, even this case, the motive was stupid, but I like to know what makes people do the things they do, and when the things that they do don't make sense, it gets to me, because I feel like there has to be a reason for everything, right? Everything that we do. Sometimes it might be misguided. Sometimes people might take what we do as something else, but we don't just do things for no reason. So I'd like to get into that. I haven't really seen that many people cover those types of cases. And Bedford Highway Killer is like my main one. So if you guys want to hear that, please let me know down below. Otherwise, I have no idea how long this is because I've cut it like 3 times. So here's the deal, right? I was working on this section, and like I said, I thought I had all my colors mapped. I didn't. I needed a gray, and I didn't have any other grays, and I was afraid to do the same kind of gray as another kind of gray, and those symbols end up together, and then it just the same gray. So I had some silver metallics coming in today from DP with Sparklers, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna come today, so I just want to, oh, where I'm missing the gold there. There it is. So I'm like, I just want to wait because I don't want to like have gaps that I can't do while I'm talking or mistakenly put something there. So I waited, and then it got really close to Ian coming home. Yeah, so that's it for me, you guys. I always make these endings really long. It's like, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up first. No, you guys hang up first. Anyway. Hang up. Hello? You still there? Okay, I'm hanging up now. Did you hang up? All right, fine. Bye. Love you.